So I think coaching is very valuable and people need it to get better. But what happens is people get to this place where they actually hit one of those places where that fear comes up. And it could be a limiting belief, it could be in conflict, or it could be one of those hot wired things. And coaching is going to take a really long time to overcome those. But with neuroscience, you can go in and just say, there it is, and literally within an hour, 2 hours, boom, it's gone. So going back to, well, let me open up the floor for any questions. Any questions before Patsy?
What would make that go away? Because I love the brain, and I do a radio show with a brain doctor. So how can you make that go away? Like what I've learned are things like, I've learned to ride a bike.
Yes.
I can't say to myself right now, I don't want to learn how to do that anymore and make it go away. Because it's so ingrained in my memory that I can't unlearn that.
Yes.
So if that's true with a bike, how can you make that happen?
This is a great question. So, this woman brings in her 7-year-old, picks her up at school, and as kid gets in the minivan, the mom looks up at the rearview mirror and basically goes, "What's wrong?" Because she can see something's wrong. She goes, "I was in a test today and I just freaked out." And the mother goes, "Oh my God, all this time we thought she had a learning disability. What if it's not a learning disability, it's a testing issue?" And so she calls me up and says, "Can you see my daughter? Because they got the MSAs happening next week on Tuesday," and this is like Thursday evening. And it's like, "Sure, but I can only see her on Monday evening because that's when I've got open time to see her." So she brings her over. I take her to the local ice cream store. So as we're having ice cream and she's distracted, "So you freaked out on your test. Tell me about it." It's just, "Yeah, I was in the test and I freaked out." So using a light form of hypnosis, I put her in a slight trance and I get her to slow time down when she freaked out in the test. And what I figured out was this: she had a thought, and the thought was, the other kids are ahead of me. And in the testing situation, she had no way of knowing. It was just a random thought. That was just like me putting out my hand for Carol like this. This was the trigger. The trigger was that thought. And then as soon as she thought that, she created a picture in her mind's eye of her being dumb. That made her feel not so good, like a negative feeling, anxiety. And then from that, she started talking to herself a lot more negatively, harshly in her mind. The pictures got worse, the feelings got worse, and after about 3 seconds, she just kind of, quote unquote, freaked out. So we figured that out while we're having ice cream. So I take her back to my office, and then I create a new neural pathway. And the trigger for the pathway is, if you ever have the thought that the other kids are ahead of me, here's a new pathway we're going to build. So the first thing we build is an emotion that triggers, and the emotion is deep curiosity. I said, "Well, have you ever been curious?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "When was this?" She goes, "We're Jewish, but we had Christmas presents, and I knew where they were hidden, and I had to know what was in mine." And I, fretted about it for like a week and a half, trying to figure out what was inside. So I was really curious. So we get that feeling from that memory, attach it to the other kids are ahead of me, trigger. Then we say, "Have you ever been decisive?" And to join soccer, I had a choice between 2 sports and I went, soccer is it. So we get that feeling of decisiveness, wire it in the mind. And the last thing was, "Have you ever had a burning desire?" And she says, "Burning desire?" It's like something you really, really wanted, nothing in the world was going to stop you. She goes, "Yeah, I went to my girlfriend's house 2 years ago, and she had this little Bichon dog, and I knew I was going to get one. And it took me 2 years of badgering my mother to get it. But nothing in the world was going to stop me." So we got that feeling of burning desire, locked it in there. Now she's got the same trigger, which is a thought, the other kids are ahead of me. One path is make bad pictures in your mind, feel really bad, and keep on doing that loop till you get a nosebleed. And the other one is get deep curiosity, which makes you think of all the possible options there are. The feeling of total decisiveness, so you pick one, and then you get a burning desire to take action. The mind's always going to pick the one with more pleasure and less pain. So we do that on Monday having ice cream, and then send her on her way and tell the mother, like I do to everyone else, "Notice what's different, call me back." And so she picks up her daughter the next day, gets in the back of the minivan, she looks in the rearview mirror, she's all happy. It's like, didn't you have a test today? She goes, yeah. And so instantly, we got test anxiety just went away. And so that's how we do it, Patsy, is that you've got this thing, we can build another network. We can't remove the memory.
Okay.
So we can build another pathway, or we can remove the energy from it. There's events right now in your past where you said something harsh to somebody else you care about. It might have been for their own good, but you still think about it, makes you feel bad. Or something bad happened to you. A boss said something and you still kind of fret about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand out some eval forms, and if you fill that out, I'm going to send you an NLP technique to let go of the past. It's a simple 3-minute process, and you'll be able to let go of that and teach it to as many people as possible, because it's a life-changing kind of tool. But before I wind down, any other questions? I'm going to give you one last assignment to do.
Is it possible just through discipline to retrain your the channels of thinking?
It is, but it's really, really hard. Like, a lot of people use affirmations, and I absolutely love affirmations for the total opposite reason for why people do them. Because when somebody has an affirmation, I am thin and sexy, what I'm looking for is that the inner voice that comes up and says, no, you're not. Or I'm rich and fabulous. Who are you kidding? Because as soon as we get that negative voice coming up, that's the thread that leads us to the belief or the inner conflict or that hot wiring. So the reason therapy takes such a long time, because it's all about conversation. And if your conscious mind knew where you were stuck, you're smart enough to get unstuck. A lot of times all you're aware of is the results you get and the feelings you get. And so I think discipline can do it, and some people do it really well, but for most people it's really hard. And if it does happen, it takes a really long time of using that willpower. I'll leave you with one last story, then I'm going to give you an exercise.
Quick question, the NLP technique, is that something like tapping? I heard people talk about tapping.
No, tapping works, but this is different.
That's a different, okay.
This is more walloping. No, I'm only kidding.
Wobble.
I went to this training, and at the end of this 2-day training experience, they wanted to make it a memorable event. So they handed out these boards of wood to everybody. And on one side, they want us to get these color Sharpie pens and put down where we were stuck in our lives on one side of the board. And on the other side, what our future was going to be like. And the idea was to break the board. And it turns out it's really, really easy to break a board like that. All you need to do is you need to hit 4 inches past the board. If your target is 4 inches past the board, anybody can break the board easily first time. But what happens is people go to break the board and fear and anxiety come up, and we pull our punch a little bit. When you pull your punch, you end up hitting the board and you end up hurting your hand. Or you use willpower and mental discipline and say, I'm going to break this board. And you hit the board as hard as you can. This is where you break your hand. It's when we have a clearer vision of what we want, and all the fear, anxiety, and limiting beliefs are gone, then we effortlessly hit 4 inches past any target we're going after. So that thing that you wrote on the paper, I want you to flip it over again, and I want you to write down, what's the one thing I need to start doing that will let me achieve that goal? And then I want you to write down, what's the one thing I need to stop doing so I can achieve that goal? And when you have that done, I'd like you to stand up for me, please, just for a moment.
Stand up.
Yeah, stand up for a minute. And I want you to take that sheet of paper and I want you to fold it in half. And I want you to take that sheet of paper, and that's a goal worthy of you, right? That's something you really want to have happen. I want you to take that paper and I want you to just hold it on your forehead just for a moment, so you really get a clear idea of that's exactly what I want. And then once you've done that, I want you to take that piece of paper and I want you to place it on your seat.
And sit on it.
Yep. Place it on your seat and I want you to sit on it. Because I want you to know that you have been to many self-development courses. You've read many books. You've had many daydreams. You know what most people do on them? Sit on them.
This is why I need to sit on it.
Yes. So thank you very much for your attention today, and enjoy the rest of the meal.